Hi, thanks a lot for picking up one of our 7 mead tastings. So today, Will and I are going to be talking you through pretty much the range of what we do here at Gosnell, is that right?
Yeah, so we're going to be going through two main styles of mead, I guess, especially two main styles that we do. In the tasting bundle, you're going to get 4 cans of mead and 3 specialty meads.
So the 4 cans are the kind of core range, the ones we kind of make most of. So they're, I guess, a classic hydromel style, which is, I mean, there's thousands of different types of mead.
Even with that, you can go hydromel, session mead, sparkling mead. I think there's even a short mead, which is a term for a short aged or non-aged mead. But yeah.
Yeah, so there are 4 core meads, and then we've got 3 special things that we've knocked up in the brewery as well.
Yeah, so we do quite a lot of barrel program work here, and we do some high gravity sort of brews as well. So the first one of that will be the pineapple comedic, which is a roasted pineapple and comedic. Comedic is a traditional Norwegian ale yeast, so that's ferments super tropical, super high. It's got a high tolerance for alcohol. It produces some nice sort of tropical notes, and we just thought we'd put a little bit of roasted pineapple on top of that and let that ferment out.
Cool.
And then the other 2 are barrel fermented and barrel aged meads. So they're both based on a traditional base. One's got plums and the other one's got mango and Scotch bonnet.
That's really exciting.
So yeah.
So should we open up the pack and
let's see what
we got?
So the first one you'll have is a little sheet, which will have a little descriptor about everything. It'll have where you can find this video, but you've already found it, so well done. On the other side, just a little bit of space just to take some notes, or to sort of write down anything that you liked or disliked, or something you want to just take note of. But we'll probably
let's
jump straight in.
Well, let's open it up, right? So we've got the 4 pack of meads. That's our classic meads. Then we've got the 3 special meads, which come in the little bottles. And then we've got a few other bits and bobs. So we've got some honey. So what's cool about this kit is you get the honey that the meads have been made from.
Yeah, so you'll get 2 honeys. So one honey is the European blossom, which is what we base the cans on. So that's a poly blossom. So a blossom is a flower that produces fruit. So that's a blend of different blossoms. And then we also have a monoflora honey, the orange blossom, which is an orange blossom honey.
And then we've got some other bits and bobs. We've got a bit of info about us and the brand. We've got a seed bomb. So this is our helping out the bees, especially over winter.
So it's not a piece of chocolate, don't eat it.
Don't eat it. So if you plant this in your garden, a load of wildflowers will grow up to kind of...
Yeah, we did that outside the brewery, and over the summer it just went absolutely nuts. It's a beautiful little thing to see.
And a few coasters as well, just to brighten up your desk.
Oh, we might as well use these.
There we go. Right, so where should we start? Should we start with some honey?
I think we should start with some honey. So first off, we'll have a look at the orange blossom, the European blossom, sorry.
So what's really cool about mead and the mead we make is that depending on the different style of honey we use, or different type of honey, and depending on what the bees have been foraging for, you get different flavour in the honey. And then when you ferment through the sugars, that kind of all gets accentuated, so you can get that bee to bottle flavour.
Yeah,
that's kind of what
and just like if you're new to mead as well, we should probably cover what mead is. So mead, like grape cider wine, honey is to mead. So it's just where you get your fermentable sugars from. So just like in wine, the honey has a terroir. So depending on where the bees have been foraging, the weather, the soil that's growing, the flora, the different types of flora, you get a beautiful range of, or a beautiful expression of the area it comes from.
So this is a blossom honey, as we mentioned. It's a blend of different types of honey. And so what we do is we like to blend a load of honeys together so we get a consistent flavour. So year after year, obviously it varies depending on what the bees have been eating, we're trying to get a really consistent flavour so we can make our core meads out of them, and they taste the same each year.
Yeah, so let's have a bit of a go. So this is quite a, I wouldn't say a typical honey, it's still quite a really, really nice honey, but it's a nice sort of rounded sweetness. It's got a little bit of fruitiness to it, a little bit of that genuine honey character as well. Yeah, it's quite a simple, complex honey, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a good base honey in which we like to layer a load of other flavours on.
Yeah, and that's kind of what you want from this honey, is to be able to have a honey that can stand up to lots of different adjuncts that come in. So if you're going to put a flavour over the top, then this honey is really good because you'll pull different parts out of it. So, you know, if you put, like with the hibiscus, you put it in, you put that nice honey character, but you also get a little bit of that sort of red fruity sort of character come through as well with that, and a little bit of that's from the honey as well. But then you put the hops in there and you get a little bit more of that apple sort of blossom that comes through in it as well.
Yeah, so that's really cool. And then the next honey we like to use, it's one of our favourite types of honey, is the orange blossom honey. This is actually the honey I used when I first started brewing to make our Gosnell of London, so the original. Now comes in those big 75cl bottles.
Yeah, so this one is a honey that you'll see a very big difference between the two. This one's got a roundy, a little bit more musky sort of feel to it. It's got a higher acidity. There's a little bit of like citrus undertone, and sometimes that can be attributed to your mind just sort of looking for that. When it says orange on the side, yeah, you're looking for that citrus, but it's there. The acid profile is a little higher, and we like to use that. Well, it's more of a premium honey as well, so we really like to use that when we're trying to showcase the honey. So especially with these traditionals, or God, you call them melomels, or you know, there's lots of names that you can go with that, and these names are usually historically driven as well. So, you know, like these can be called metheglins as well, which is anything that has a spice added to it or a flower. So the hibiscus or the hop would be classified as a metheglin, which comes from the Welsh term for medicine.
There you go, that's a Mead fact for you.
That is, and yeah, a lot of them get their names from these sort of historical things, like a rhodomel is Greek for...
rose.
Yeah, it's like
rose hips, or...
No, it's rose honey?
I don't know. Well,
yeah, I'll remember that in a minute.
Yeah, fair enough.
But,
so I think what's really cool about these two honeys, you can see the difference between them. So one of them, I like to describe as quite, so the orange blossom honey is quite a distinct kind of sharp flavour almost, and the other one's a bit more rounded. So you can kind of see how we're going to use that as we make our meads. So now's probably a good time, if you're not set up, get yourself a glass, make sure your meads are all chilled and you're ready to go.
Yeah, so remember, chill these ones. These ones you can serve at room temperature as well. Or you can serve them slightly chilled. I probably wouldn't put them in the freezer and have them super cold.
Yeah, you want them to
just a little bit to open up, and because they're oxidized as well during that fermentation process, because they're barrel fermented, you know, having them open and get a bit of oxygen just help lift up that flavor profile as well.
Sure. So should we get into it?
Let's get into it. So I think we'll start with the hopped.
Yeah, I normally start with the hopped.
Yeah, the hopped is one that's a little bit more accessible to people in understanding what the flavour profile is going to be. If you've drank beer, you know what the hops are like, and you know what the sort of flavour profile they give, a little bit of bitterness, a nice little bit of aromatic as well. So yeah, these ones are done with US Cascade hops.
Right, so quite big hops.
Quite big hops, you know, not super tropical, but a little bit tropical. Oh, that's what the coasters are good for, because when you spill, you don't move it all around.
Well, try not to anyway.
But so the first thing you're going to sort of see is that beautiful colour. So we're looking at that first honey here, the European blossom, which is quite dark and yellow, and you're going to see just a little bit of that stick in the final product.
Yeah.
We've got a little bit of head retention as well. Unlike beer, we don't have as much proteins in our mead as well, so we don't get as good head retention. So when you see that head drop, it's not flat, it's just how that sort of product settles out.
Sure, it's worth saying that the cans are obviously all carbonated, so it kind of helps to lift some of the flavours. They're 4%, so they're quite sessionable and quite easygoing. And that carbonation just adds to the mouthfeel, and the CO2 is actually a little bit acidic, so it kind of sharpens up some of the flavours.
Yeah. So the other thing too is, you know, I get it all the time. What do you shake your glass, or what do you roll it around? Sometimes you do it because you're adding a little bit of oxygen into it, or you're knocking out a little bit of that CO2, so you can lift some of those more volatile compounds up into
the aromatics kind of,
and you can get those into your nose.
So what does it taste like or smell like on the nose as well?
So on the nose, the first thing I always get with our stuff, it's honey. So you're going to get honey at the forefront, and that's kind of the idea. But just behind that, those sort of secondary flavours start to kick in. There's a little bit of apple, I get a little bit of elderflower.
Yeah, I definitely get the elderflower coming through, and that's the kind of one of the flavours that people often mention is that elderflower.
Yeah, and it's again, talking about it being hops, it's something that you've smelled before and you understand, and if you're doing these sort of tastings quite often, you get a little bit deeper, and when you start getting a bit deeper into this, you get a little slight citrus note. There's a little bit of There's a little bit of almost like grassiness in there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's have a taste. Cheers.
Oh, I always forget how good that is. So, on the palate, for me, it's, you obviously get that hit of kind of, not sweetness, but like, you definitely know there's some honey character coming through.
Yeah, so for me, the first part of palate is adjusting to that sweetness level.
Yeah.
And that's why it's always good to start with the hops, because of the hops as well, you get a little bit of bitterness. So that kind of helps towards the end of the palate as it's also start to bitter out and get that little bit of tannin structure, a little bit of astringency at the end. But that middle palate, the acid seems to come through and just sort of lighten it up as well. And you get a nice sort of floral and sort of, I'd say grassy again.
Yeah, and elderflowery kind of notes.
This sort of
floral notes. Yeah,
and they sort of come through all the way through that palate, and then you get a nice sort of drying finish with the hops.
Yeah, it's a nice kind of short, sharp finish. I think it's nice and crisp and refreshing.
And you'll see that when we start comparing these cans together, even though they've got a very similar base, they really do differ past the first part of the palate.
Yeah.
Some of them, like the Citra, which we'll get to, a little bit salty at the front as well, but it's more salty at the finish.
Yeah.
But yeah, so enjoy, guys. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah, obviously feel free to give us a pause whilst you enjoy this. Don't expect you to ramp through 7 Meads.
If you look at the video and you go, I've got to drink 7 Meads in 25 minutes, you can. If you want to record that and send it to us, that's always fun. We do love a very intense short drinking session. So yeah, efficient. Yeah, that's it.
So I normally go on to the Citra.
Yeah.
So these were actually formulated at the same time. So when we were looking to make the hops, this was a much more experimental recipe. Kind of, I think the inspiration from Nick, who made it, your predecessor, was a goza. So taking inspiration from that. So
a goze, if you don't know, a goze is a sour beer, so a lactose sour beer with coriander, lemon peel, and hops.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're going with here, except we've transferred the coriander for tarragon. So we're sort of brightened it up, and the tarragon gives you a little bit of anise, not over the top. As somebody who's quite sensitive to that sort of anise flavour profile, it's very well incorporated. And then the saltiness just gives it a nice, clean
sea salt
finish.
in it.
Forgot that. We did. So at the end, you got a little bit of sea salt. So the story when I started here that I really enjoyed was that Tom used to drive down to Cornwall, fill up an IBC full of seawater, bring it back.
It wasn't an IBC, it was a big jerry can, because the Clio can only take
I've seen that Clio take a lot. It's a beautiful car if you're looking for an old car, buy a Clio.
Anyway, it was originally with seawater. Obviously we scaled up the recipe, so we replaced it with sea salt. And we make
a little bit more consistency as well, and as you sort of start to like a recipe, you're always developing and you never quite finish.
Yeah. Thanks, Will.
More than welcome.
So I think this is the most complex of the cans in terms of the flavour. There's a lot of flavours layered on top of each other, and actually that's quite challenging to do well, to kind of get each of those elements to sing both together and individually.
Yeah, so when I talk about this with people, I remember when I first started brewing that I was told that not to use any more than 3 ingredients. Stick to quite simple flavors, otherwise you don't know what's going to happen at the end.
Yeah.
And that's good for developing recipes, but once you've developed a recipe and then you start moving it along, you can really start getting used to it. And this is where this is at. So when you put your nose into it, Tom, what do you get?
Oh, it's richer than the first one. So I can get the tarragon coming through. I obviously know it's tarragon. It's not that familiar a smell or a flavour, but that for me is the predominant. A little bit grassy, a little bit anise. Creamy almost, like there's a richness to it.
And you can really smell the salt too. And I always have this sort of can you smell salt? And I'm like, you can smell the ocean, you can smell salt.
Yeah, it's true.
So it's got a little bit of that sort of character to it as well. We also use lemon peel in here as well, just to give it a little bit of citrus, and a little
something to bite into.
Yeah, something to lighten it up with the acid profile.
This is definitely one of the ones that you want to have a couple of sips. It will open up. It's, as we said, it was quite complex, so you need to sort of bend your mind around it a little bit.
Yeah, especially after the hopped.
Yeah.
The hopped had a nice dry finish. This one, you're really picking up a little bit more of the sweetness. You can really get that I think it's a lemon peel that's giving it that sort of roundy creaminess to it as well. So just because we use not just the peel, we use a little bit of the pith as well.
Yeah, so you get some of those oils coming out.
You get some of those oils, and it gives it a nice rounded sort of feel to it as well. You get a nice little bit of hop character in there as well.
Yeah.
It helps dry out at the end, but then you can get hit with that beautiful salty finish at the end.
I know, that for me, that's what makes this exceptional, right? It's that salty, almost like, it's not like salted caramel, but in the same way that you use salt and salted caramel.
Yeah, salt and sweet go together so well, you know.
Exactly.
But yeah, cheers.
That's tasting really good today. I kind of oscillate between which is my favourite, but sometimes you just taste it and go, oh, that's
That's
really
the beauty about the 4-pack, is that there's definitely one in there for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
So guys, this is probably another good time. Pause your video, finish off your drink, enjoy it, and then we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, and if you've got any thoughts or questions, then either send us an Instagram or an email. Yeah, and we'd love to hear what people think about what we're doing.
We really do. It's the best sort of way to get feedback.
It does make my day when people send us an email. I had a lovely phone call from someone the other day.
Nice.
It's just really nice.
Well, this is it. When you actually give your number out to people and they use it, it's quite surprising.
Exactly.
You know? And it's usually you always think you're going to be scared of people just annoying you with stuff, but we only get great things come through.
Yeah,
so.
which is nice.
All right.
Well, hopefully you've had a little bit of a pause. Where you can carry on. Where are we going next, Will?
So I think the next one that I usually like to go to is the sour. So let's crack open the sour.
Cool. So tell us about the sour, Will. How's this made and how's this different?
So the sour is my baby. This is a mixed fermentation mead. So mixed fermentation just means that it's using different yeast and bacteria. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is sour when you say mixed fermentation, but generally it is. So with this one we're using Saccharomyces, which is your normal brewers or baking yeast. Then we're using Lactobacillus, which is what you'll find in yogurt and used to cure cheese. And then we also use Acetobacter, which you'll find in vinegar and in Belgian beers, which is where I sort of got the inspiration for this growing up. I loved Belgian beer. It was something so strange to me, that combination of acid profiles and the sourness that goes to it always struck me as something I always wanted to create.
Yeah, and I guess what's really cool is those three organisms form this kind of symbiotic relationship where they're kind of producing different compounds that they all kind of eat together. And it's really unique mixed fermentation.
Yeah, so the fun side of that too is that Acetobacter converts alcohol into acetic acid. So you've got a different style of fermentation happening there as well. So that means you need to produce the alcohol using the Saccharomyces and that converts sugar to alcohol, and then you've got the Lactobacillus, which will convert sugar to lactic acid, and then you've got the Acetobacter that takes some of that alcohol and converts that over to acetic acid.
So what we do is we obviously essentially sour up the mead, don't we? So we make quite a sour base, and we back it off with a sweeter mead, which is technically they use in Belgian beers as well.
Yeah, and this is what you'll find about this, is it's a balance between sour and sweet. So it's not like your typical sour beer, which can be quite acidic and dry. This has got a nice balanced sweetness to it that really makes it unique.
Yeah, cool.
So let's have a go.
Oh, so on the nose you definitely get that acid profile, right?
Yeah, so you get a little bit of that sort of vinaigrette, that nice rounded sweet smell of the lacto as well. And you get nice yeast characters. We also use a little bit of tea in this as well, and that's just to give a little bit of nitrogen to our mixed fermentation. So with that there, you're going to get a little bit of this tannin structure and a little bit of roundness coming from the tea as well. Other than that, it's pretty much a straight mead. So you're looking at just how that bacteria works with the honey, which is really cool.
And then on the flavour, you get this. It's a little bit funky. Is not necessarily. It's not super funky. But there's a hint of funk in there. And then there's the acid, which is nicely foiled with the sweetness, and then for me it just gets you salivating at the back of the mouth.
Yeah, and the tea allows it just to give that little bit of maltiness, that little bit of biscuit that you can kind of get in there, or bread some people associate it with, and that just gives it a nice full round feel to it as well, which is really, really cool.
It's really cool.
But yeah, this is definitely, we talked about it before about having our favourites. This one's always my first or my second favourite. It takes a very long time to make. Probably about 3 or 4 times as long as all the other cans, but
there we go. It's worth it. It's worth it. So guys, again, let us know what you think about that, and take a pause, take a breather if you like, and then we'll continue.
Yeah, enjoy.
Where are we going next then, Will?
Okay.
Oh, well, go for the last can, the hibiscus, which is my personal favourite, the one that I like to drink in the shower.
Please tell me more. I haven't heard this story.
The world's split about shower beers.
Well, in Australia, it's always been a thing. It's not even a question of, oh, that's weird. It's just you're either a person who does it or you don't.
Yeah, so I'm a person who likes a really cold beverage in the shower. And this is my go-to beverage, especially at the moment. So it's the hibiscus mead. Beautifully pink.
As you can see, yeah. And this one, talking a little bit more about not having proteins in our mead as well. The hibiscus itself actually gives a little bit of protein structure to this as well. That's why you get a little bit better head retention with the hibiscus versus the other 3 cans.
So this is made by essentially jamming the fermenter full of hibiscus flowers, so dried hibiscus flowers.
Which, if you've ever had dried hibiscus flowers, they're very tart, they're beautiful and fruity, and they're just a really cool thing to work with. And when we put our nose into it, we'll see all these fruits and these red fruit sort of flavours that come through, but there's nothing there but hibiscus, which is why I really love working with this,
really cool.
this ingredient.
Yeah, so on the nose I get blackcurrant, jam,
Very
fruity,
jammy.
very jammy.
Yeah, I get a little bit of, little tiny bit of cranberry and a little bit of raspberry, these sort of like berry characteristics.
Red fruits,
these red fruits. Not so much red stone fruit, but more berry-esque.
It's a red stone fruit.
Would you call plum a red stone
I
fruit?
suppose you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah. It's red on the outside,
It's red
but
on
it's
the
usually
outside.
got white flesh.
Anyway.
Right, can you get...
We
Conversation for another time.
Yeah.
This is the beauty about drinking mead, is as you get further on, the conversation gets a little...
more fluid. So this is just gorgeous, right?
So on the palate, you really got to notice the level of sweetness drop, and that's not necessarily less sugar than the others or less residual honey than the others. It's more that acid profile from the hibiscus is really lifting that drink to be, perception of sweetness to drop.
Yeah, and I think what the hibiscus, there must be some tannic structure in this hibiscus flower.
Yeah.
Because you get that dryness at the end, which I always compare to, say, a cranberry juice.
Yeah.
So that drying out, it's not dry, it's sweet, but then you get that dry finish, which is nice.
And it's really fun to sort of go through that, especially when you compare all the cans and how different they are based on their ingredients. This one's one of those ones where you're just like, wow, that's so diversely different to the rest, and it's only one ingredient.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah. Cool.
So
really
guys,
fun.
take another breather if you need it, and then we'll continue on with some of the small batch. What are you doing here?
I heard you guys are tasting some mead, so I wanted to join the party.
We will be.
We will be. We've just finished tasting the 4 packs of mead, so hopefully you've enjoyed that. This is a bit of a segue into the second half, which is our more premium mead tastings.
Yeah, so we change them each month, and this is the next instalment. So make sure your glasses are clean, ready to go, and enjoy. James, we're here. We're back. It's like magic. We've lost Tom, but no real loss there. You've got Mead Maker James.
El Jameso, they call me in the mead world.
So James, let's get straight into the April tasting.
Yeah.
First off, guys, I would suggest grabbing the elderflower. We've just done the 4 cans, tasted through some honey. This is another hydromel style. It's brewed in a similar sort of fashion as the 4 previous cans. This one's got elderflower and just a little bit more alcohol. So this is bumped up to 5.5%, give it a bit more body. But yeah, if you ever had elderflower before, you kind of know what you're in for. But honey and elderflower just mix together so well. So pleasure to have you here, James, and let's do the first part of this tasting.
A little bit of elderflower cordial.
It's been a while since we've made this. It is definitely a hell of a smell in the brewery whenever we make this. Like, we hang these in the fermentation, so this all goes into primary fermentation, and it just smells incredible.
Smack bang on the nose. First thing, elderflower. It's great.
Elderflower. Underneath, you just get just a little hint of like apple or like a cidery character that comes through as well.
Yeah.
And then the honey kind of comes out right at the end, and not much more to say. Just have a drink, and this one is just summer in a glass.
They blend really well, don't they?
Oh, yeah. And then there's a lot more honey on the palate. A little bit of astringency from the elderflower. A little bit of floral character in there as well. But this is absolutely delicious. I think very soon we're going to put a new variation of this on for the Mead Garden.
I'll get one on for the bar.
healthy measures there too, James. Sorry. Sit back, enjoy. I'm going to chuck a little pause in here. So finish off your glass, pause, rinse it out, we'll move on to the next one. James is already ready. So I'll see you in 2 seconds, guys. So we're back. Fresh, clean glass. We're going to crack on with ours. This is the comedic traditional. So this is an 8% just honey, water, and yeast.
And the yeast is it's a Nordic yeast, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a Nordic farmhouse ale yeast.
And what sort of things can you expect from comedic yeast?
So comedic can produce a little bit of citrus. It can produce some tropical flavours. It also, paired with honey, comes out and pulls a lot of that sort of honey character forward. But it is quite a dominant flavour profile. So if I was creating a normal traditional, I'd stick with something a little less impactful. But it's really cool to sort of see how this yeast works with the honey.
And by traditional, it's just yeast and honey.
Yeast, water, and honey.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. I see you mean by the tropical.
Yeah, there's a little bit of
Pineapple on the nose first thing.
pineapple. You know what else is on there is
licorice, something
no,
like that.
yeah,
Aniseed.
I'm getting like red apples, like raw gala, dry red apple, almost skin, almost like candied apple underneath there as well.
Toffee apple, yeah.
There's a little bit of a little bit of toffee apple, I think too. You picked up a little bit of the caramel and that. Yeah, toffee apple's a really good shout. I really quite like that.
And this isn't back sweetened. This is comedic yeast doesn't tend to ferment all the sugars, so it leaves.
No, so this is is this done with the Nordic Ale blend?
Mm-hmm.
So this is 2 or 3 strains of different comedic yeast together, and they sort of work in harmony. And this has a alcohol attenuation between 5 and 10%. So we made a 10% mead, and we gave it to it to see how far it would sort of chew through. And we got all the way up to about 8%. The sweetness got right, and it sort of mellowed its way out. And I really like working with this yeast.
Really nice sweetness
it's
level.
It's fun. It's super clean. It's got a little bit of funk, it's apple character, fruit character, all these sort of things come through. But as you can see, the honey's taken a little bit of a back step against the yeast profile, and that's cool in some things. But as we sort of move on, it's not always the way that we'd like to go. But this is definitely a yeast that is fun to drink as well as fun to work with.
Yeah.
But well done, James.
Cheers.
Good. So guys, hit the pause button or drink up, and we'll see you in a second. We're back, James.
We are.
This is I really like these tastings.
It's nice to look back on what we've already done.
Because even for us, like, we've made everything here and we've tasted everything here before, but coming back to it and tasting them against sort of things and seeing how they've aged and developed as well. Some of these things we're only just putting in here because we think that they're ready to go out to the public, where when they finish fermentation we know that they're going to take 3, 6, 9 months, 12 months to sort of get to the profile that we want. So something like the last one that we taste, the Boucher, that's one of those ones that takes a long time. It ages on the yeast, and that autolysis of the yeast changes the flavour profile. And you dial it in, that wood character's there, that micro-oxidization. But we'll get to that in a second. But these last two, both barrel fermented.
Yep.
Both barrel aged.
Yep.
They labours of love for us as well. So the plantain and blueberry, James, do you want to step us through that process?
Yeah, sure. So this is like we were saying, it's barrel aged.
It's barrel fermented as well.
Barrel fermented as well. And in the secondary fermentation, we loaded it up with roasted plantain and blueberries and let that sit for a long time. And the way that the plantain has come out is really, really interesting. I think what we were thinking was something like American pancakes, that kind of thing. And I think we've done really well with this.
So yeah, this is in the barrel after fermentation is finished. Roasted plantains, blueberries, and then at the end we just added a little hint of maple syrup in the back sweetening, just to give it a little bit of that American, Canadian sort of, tropic, not tropic sort of feel, just sugary delight in the can. So cheers, James. This is a lot of hard work, and I think it came out all right. So on the nose, picking up a little bit of bourbon. So they were done in bourbon cask, sorry. So they picked up a bit of that character. Then comes in this nice, like, creamy sort of aroma. And it's cleaned up with that sort of berry-ish, blueberry sort of finish to the nose, which is really cool. And there's this smokiness in there now too. Very interesting. Oh, but then when it hits the palate,
It's really smooth from the plantain.
lots of sticky mouthfeel.
Yeah. And the blueberry and maple syrup are just working really well together.
Yeah, because we added blueberry juice for a little bit of back sweetening as well, didn't we? So we
Yeah.
juiced some blueberries and put them in there just to get that character, that acid and sugar balance sort of finish out nice and long, and for that oak character to sort of dry everything out as you sort of get towards the back end of the palate.
It's quite sticky, quite sweet, but also a really nice level of acidity that cuts through all of that.
It's beautiful. The carbonation helps as well. Just tickles a little bit in the mouth.
There's just so much going on, and you just go for every mouthful.
Oh, yeah.
Every mouthful's like a little journey, isn't it?
This one for me was a lot more plantain. Now I'm really starting to get that like starchy sort of covery
Coating, yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Really interesting. But guys, enjoy and hit the pause button, or drink at a terrifyingly fast pace. And we'll see you for the last one in the tasting bundle.
And we're back for the final one.
We are indeed. So the last one probably is one of the most fun things that we get to make here at Gosnell's Towers.
It is great. So, Bochet style mead
Oof.
is where you caramelize a portion of the honey.
Or all of it. Like
All of it, yeah.
we choose to do a portion to balance out the bitterness, but the style itself could be all caramelized honey.
And the process for that, for us, is really fun. So we load up a kettle with honey and we put it on a barbecue. We start the barbecue, get the fire going, and we monitor the level of caramelization as the honey heats up. And as you go over time, you start to see the color change from, a deep golden color to a dark. We go about this deep, so sort of dark amber.
Yeah, we'll almost go just a little bit darker than this,
yeah.
and that fermentation, once we mix it back with the water, will lighten that out a little bit. So
And it starts to give you all these like toasted coffee and caramel notes. And that's which is
what you kind of expect from caramelizing honey, but there's some little things underneath it that you don't really think about, and that sort of caramelization reaction actually creates some bitter compounds in there as well.
Yeah.
And that's what sort of drives the flavor profile for the boucher. It's got these beautiful toffee, caramel, fudge, whatever you sort of associate with it, but it's also carrying through this bitterness. So we move it from that into a barrel fermentation. And then we allow that to age on the lees for about 6 months. And we brew it to about 13%. And we just sort of let it sit. And it just over time, the acid profile and the sugar profile go up and down until they find themselves in a nice little equilibrium, which is where we are now. So, James, another fine tasting. Guys, thanks for joining us. But yeah, on the nose straight away, first thing. For me, caramel, toffee, coffee. And then there's a little bit underneath it for me, which is like bitter orange peel.
Yeah,
Some
there's a
almond in there. There's some dates.
There's a nice acidity that cuts through the nose underneath all the.
It's like toasted almonds.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys,
Cheers.
enjoy. So the best thing I love about this is that front palate almost makes you a little bit scared to, if you're a whiskey drinker, I haven't had a whiskey for a while, or you're a rum drinker, that you're waiting for that initial hit of alcohol. So you're getting all that character you would get from rum or whiskey coming smack bang in the face, and your body's almost, or your brain's almost getting geared up to go like, oh, okay, we're going to get a big alcohol burn here. And then it's just nice and sweet and long and complex towards the back. And that's probably the coolest thing about this, is that little journey from the first time you've had it right until that last sort of sip at the end, where you're starting to pick up a bit more acid and a bit more this. But for me, first sip, sweet, toffee-like on the palate. Little bit of micro-oxidization, a little bit port-like. And then as it sort of gets into the back, you get these dark sort of dried fruits and citrus notes. And that's that sort of acid starting to play with the sugar a little bit.
Really interesting.
But guys, that's our March tasting kit. April tasting kit. These drinks are definitely working. So, guys, thanks for stopping by and having a mead with us, and hope to see you again soon.
Cheers.
Well, hopefully you've enjoyed that tour, whistle-stop tour, not so whistle-stop tour, through our meads. If you have any questions or you want to let us know what your favourite was, tag us in your photos. Everyone loves a bit of social.
Yeah.
And get in touch.
So guys, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.